What's up, guys? We're here today at the Radium booth at Esk8con 2024, where we've got a couple members of staff to talk to us about this incredible creation that's been floating around on the internet for a little while. So we've got, why don't you each introduce yourselves? So we got Liam.
I'm Liam. I help develop all the boards, so I do all the design work and do order fulfillment and pretty much a lot of the on-the-ground stuff running the business.
Sweet.
Hi, I'm Will, and I also help with developing this board. I do quite a R&D alongside with Liam, and I'm just in the workshop getting this thing, in shape and how it looks right now.
Sweet. And then one more.
I'm Ant. I work together with these guys. We're a pretty tight-knit team. We all kind of do design. We all work very closely together. But I do a lot more of the business admin and marketing, graphic design, a lot of the other off jobs that need to be done for a business that's growing.
Sweet. So, first topic, we mentioned graphic design, and back here we've got the, what are you calling this one? The XP3, the very first one?
Yeah, so we built a bunch of prototypes, and our naming system for each prototype was basically we just called it an XP, so experimental prototype.
Yep.
And we had 1, 2, 3. Dylan rides number 4. This was number 3, and this is the one that we decided to do a crazy graphic livery design on.
Yep.
And yeah, this is how it turned out. So this was kind of really close to production spec in a way, and so we thought we'd use this board to show the world what we're up to, and to make it stand out, we spent way too much time on making it look awesome. We kind of got carried away.
Yeah, I mean, it paid off. I think one of my favorite parts,
I'm glad we did it,
is the Pirelli-inspired coloring on the wheels and stuff. It just looks super cool.
Yeah.
You don't see that too often on urethane or... No, these aren't urethane wheels, they're rubber wheels.
No, these are rubber. They've worn down a bit from when they were new. We do ride this board. We can't just have it sitting around because we need to use every board we've got for research and development. And
that's a really good way to do things, in my opinion. So, Let's see. We got...
The first scratch was pretty painful.
Oh, yeah,
but
I'm sure.
the following scratches,
I feel like some certain someone named Dylan might be responsible for some of these. So, we got... let's talk about this one since it's a little easier to see. So this is the Mach One Genesis Edition. This is number 00. It's currently up for auction at Esk8con right now, and it'll be sold while we're here. So that'll be pretty cool to see who goes home with that. I wanted to do sort of a technical interview with Liam here since he's the designer, or the main designer anyway. So first thing that's incredible on this board is the suspension system. Do you want to talk through a little bit about the way you came up with that, and maybe some of the development challenges?
Yeah, sure. So that's probably like one of the biggest innovations of this board is the suspension system. So basically how it works is if you look over here, you've got a pivot shaft that goes through here, and this whole part of the board is like a swing arm. So it's pretty much like what you see on the back of a motorcycle, like a rear swing arm. Right. And what that does is it allows this part to pivot up and down, but it cannot twist or it can't move in any other way. So it's locked in this axis, and that means that your steering inputs are not affected by the suspension. So it's just there to absorb shocks and take the edge off the bumps, but it's not so much so that it's actually absorbing your steering inputs.
Right. Do we have this disassembled anywhere, or can you explain how the shock absorption works?
So you have a urethane bushing in here, and that's kind of what gets compressed when you put your weight on it. And
is it a unique shape, like not a normal skate bushing?
It's a unique shape.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's a unique formula as well.
Gotcha.
We've been experimenting a lot with the formulas, and that was a big part of the development of this.
Okay.
And the shape as well, and
it's
the
a pretty
leverage
unique shape here.
Yeah. I can show you how it works. So
yeah, that'd be sweet.
If you come over here.
So we got the XP5 here.
And if you can see it in here, I might put it in the sun.
Yeah, let's see
Maybe
if we
not.
can get...
It's in the shadow. It's probably better. When I stand on it, it compresses the bushing.
Wow, that looks so cool.
And you get suspension. And it's on the front and the rear. But steering is completely unaffected.
Yeah, that's certainly a unique aspect. I know there are other suspension boards out there that utilize suspension that does affect the turn, sort of like
I've tried a lot of
Propel
them.
and maybe A-Stack and some of the other ones, and it's just a completely different feel than something that is purpose designed to not affect the riding.
It's a different feel. Some people like it. I'm personally not one of those people, so I like boards to react very instantly when I do things, and every suspension board I've tried, it's just, there's like a good 1 or 2 second delay almost before when you turn for it to actually react and come with you, and that delay really makes me feel not connected to the board.
Yeah.
And I even find that riding like Lacroix boards and bigger boards with mountain board trucks, it just feels like I'm standing on a platform and I'm not really connected to the platform. I mean, you do get a bit used to it after a while, but there's just still always a bit of a delay. Like if you need to dodge a pothole or something, you know, you need to prepare your whole body to move with it. Whereas what we've tried to do with this board through the whole design is to make it as quick as possible to react to you and kind of just feel like it's an extension of your body, you know, just minimize any lag. We've tried to hide the weight as much as possible. We've gone with as narrow trucks as we can. We've really focused on the design of the trucks to hide the weight of the board as well.
What's it weigh in at?
It's 38 pounds or
Okay.
17.2 kilos with Radium rubber wheels, which we're up to version 4 on at the moment. And so this is the latest design.
Yeah, I've been very interested in these for a while. As someone who has been waiting to get BRPs for a long time, do you think that these have the potential to offer similar track performance to the BRPs?
So, well, we knew the track performance here at Esk8con because we were monitoring Dylan's lap times. So we started off on these on the soft compound, and we managed to get 52.6 seconds for qualifying, and that was with no torque vectoring as well, which is another thing we can go into. And then we put the BRP wheels on because just from test riding other boards, we could feel that they had a bit more grip. And Dylan managed to get down to a 50-second lap time. So
It's pretty fast.
yeah, shaved off a couple seconds with the BRPs. So they're definitely grippier on track. But we were actually very surprised how well these did considering that they were designed for street. I mean, this whole board was designed for riding on the street, and we managed to get into, we just missed out on the final race of Pro Class by 1 point. So
yeah, the Pro Class is pretty insane nowadays.
it's pretty crazy, yeah.
It's impressive that somebody was able to even get into that level on a non-BRP and non-pneumatic tire. It's I think first time.
We were the only ones in the Pro Class that qualified 12th. Well, we qualified 12th, and we were the only ones that weren't on either BRP or pneumatic wheels. We did it on these, which was pretty awesome.
That's sweet. So these new, there's been several iterations of these wheels, like Liam said. The latest version has a pretty sweet looking metal core in there. And does that interface with a standard Kegel?
Yeah, it's a Kegel core pattern. So we've got 8mm axles on this board so that we can use Kegel and run pretty much any wheels we want. So we like to ride all different kinds of wheels and test them out. We've got Mad wheels is one that we use quite a lot.
Yeah, I like those.
We can put pneumatics on these as well. Yeah, the Mad wheels are really fun because they're so lightweight. They're really grippy. They're a strange kind of urethane that's almost like rubber. So yeah, they're another type of fun. You put those on this board, and because they're so light, they spool up really quick as well. So the acceleration is just insane.
Yeah.
But we love these for riding on the road, on the street, because they're extremely grippy, extremely stable. The fastest I've ever gone on the board at 45 miles per hour was when I first put these wheels on, these latest prototypes. And I think it was the first day I put them on, I just broke my speed record. Because it was just feeling so planted and solid.
Yeah.
And I was also blown away by the turning radius. Like, you know, you do things when you're designing in CAD that you think, you know, based on your previous experience is going to help.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't always work, but in this case, it worked even better than I expected, you know. So
that's awesome.
The turning radius at low speed is really good, and the stability is great. So we're really stoked with these wheels. They're a lot more comfortable than the ones that were on XP3, which were the version 2 prototypes, and they were just solid rubber, and they were smaller and they're actually heavier than what these are. So we're focused on getting the weight down and making them more comfy and compliant and turn better and more stable at speed, and I think we've achieved that.
Yeah, that's sweet. I know you've mentioned on the forum before that this isn't necessarily a quote-unquote racing board. It's just a really good board that happens to race well. Is that right? It's sort of like a gaming computer can also do lots of other things really well.
Yeah, like we couldn't help ourselves because we love Formula One. And
okay,
if we can make the thing look like a Formula One car, why not? You know, and we've done that, but actually all the things that we've done to do that are actually functional as well. You know, like if you look at the shape of the trucks, they're a triangular beam shape, which does kind of look Formula One, but it's also functional. That makes them a lot stronger. It's a naturally lightweight, strong kind of shape.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see them on the R6 trucks here.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. I know the front truck is 60 degrees, and what's the back one?
30 degrees.
So you get 60-30.
Twice the amount of steering from the front of the board as you do from the rear, and that means that most of your steering is coming from the lightest end of the board, where there's less weight, and that makes the board feel lighter under your feet. It kind of hides the weight. And then we've done other things to hide the weight, like keeping the battery sort of down the center of the board, and the enclosure is very narrow, and so that way the battery is sort of in line with the pivot axis, and you don't really feel it as you're turning as well.
There's so many unique things on this board,
including
the battery. I mean, completely designed from the ground up, new PCB system with interlocking pins and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. We've got a modular battery system where no one's done this before, as far as I can tell. It's quite complicated, and it's got, there's no balance wires. It's all PCBs with little fuses on every single cell, and fiberglass panels that all interlock together. And basically, we designed it so that if we needed to change P group, we could just tear the pack apart and just unclick a P group and grab a new one and snap it in, and then put it all back together with no welding.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was designed around serviceability and safety as well. It's a very safe design with no wires anywhere.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think a lot of the issues we have with batteries are related to either balance wires or weld quality. And so are you guys doing your batteries in-house, or are you making them out-of-house and shipping them in?
We've made them in-house for the Genesis boards, but we're going to have to move to overseas production just because of logistics reasons, actually, because it's very difficult to ship batteries out of Australia.
Interesting.
Yeah. So.
So like it would need to be made in the destination country?
No. We're going to get them made by a trustworthy factory overseas.
Okay.
And then shipped to the destination country from there.
Okay.
Yeah. But.
So would that require like an end-of-line assembly?
Yeah, so for the United States, we're going to have Mboards shipping our boards, and they'll be installing the battery and packaging them up. Yeah, and that'll make it a lot easier, like a lot more affordable for people who are in the US. They don't have to pay for shipping from Australia, which is obscene,
Yeah,
so.
I'm sure, yeah. Australia's shipping is very cost prohibitive for people buying things.
Yeah, it's just the laws are so strict around lithium batteries, like to get our batteries to Esk8con here, I think it was around 1,500 Australian. We had to use a dangerous goods company, and we just shipped our batteries by themselves to Mboards. And like the guy who came to see us, he deals with like uranium and missiles, and that's who we had to use to ship our batteries here.
That's crazy. That's such.
Yeah, he was literally wearing a radiation detector on his chest, And I was like, man, this isn't going to be cheap, but there's no one else.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough.
Yeah, but we made it.
Yeah, that's great, and they look beautiful. The deck on these is a unibody piece of carbon. Does it have honeycomb inside, or is it just?
No, it's a hollow carbon fiber. So here's like a prototype one from my board, and basically you have a urethane edge all the way around.
Okay.
And then it's 2 layers of carbon fiber that are laminated together, and you've got these like hollow beams inside, which make it a lot lighter and stronger, and it's incredibly stiff. Like, you cannot flex this by hand.
Yeah.
And this only weighs 2.5 pounds, or about just over a kilo.
So is it foam fill honeycomb, or is it?
No, it's hollow.
It's hollow, okay,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. Up until about here, where the urethane runs around the edge. The rest is hollow, basically.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Now, the urethane probably makes it a little bit more durable as well. In that.
Yeah. It's got a really durable edge. It's a nice thick edge that feels comfortable. It's like a wooden deck, basically.
And I assume that you guys plan for a binding to be able to be installed on here. I know some of the other lid boards have very thin, like 3mm thick lids, and this one is definitely a bit sturdier.
Yeah, it's a very steady lid, and if you want to add your own binding, it's really easy to do. In fact, kind of any modifications are very easy on this board because of the deck system. So it's only 8 screws, and then you can take the whole deck off.
So the deck lid comes off, and then it's sort of a rolling chassis that
you could even stand on it and ride it with no deck.
That's very easy.
So it's like a Formula One monocoque sort of system.
How's the water resistance on it?
Really good. So we've got a foam gasket that runs all the way around, and we've never really had any dust or water get in when that's been set up properly. And like we ride these things in full downpours.
Wow.
And then where the cables go into the enclosure, there's a urethane cable gland that hugs around every single wire, and it's so tight that we have to install it with a lubricant. And as we're installing it, you can see the lubricant squeezing out of between every single wire. It's that tight.
Wow, that's it's
so we're pretty confident with water resistance. It's just that like we don't want to claim that it's waterproof or anything because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, going to the lengths of getting an IP rating is pretty expensive too.
Exactly, yeah. So we've done our best, but we're not claiming anything.
So you guys might be familiar with the Reacher motors. A lot of people are selling them now. It's kind of the latest hot trend, and well, Radium and Liam over here are definitely the ones that are responsible for a lot of the awesome features that we've got in them today. They poured hundreds of hours of development and testing into these motors, and I got them on my board now as well, and they are absolutely awesome. You guys have 245 kV on this board, is that right?
So the production board is 205 kV, whereas the prototypes ran 245. And the reason we've done that is just for the thermal management and also for belt slip. So we wanted to make sure that people would never get any belt slip.
Yeah.
And we had to go down to 205 kV so we could run a slightly bigger motor pulley just to ensure that.
So what's your gearing back here?
So this board is set up with 16 and 45.
16, 45, okay.
That gears it to about 40 miles per hour.
That's a decent gearing. On a lot of my street boards, I run like 15 to 40 or 16 to 40 or something like that. So this is a little bit torquier, but you guys make that up.
Well, these wheels are quite big, so...
Yeah, the size of the wheels and the motor kV.
Yeah, so you end up with 40 miles per hour with that gearing, and we're going to give another option, 18 tooth, which will give you 45 miles per hour.
That's sweet.
Yeah, it's a nice top speed.
And continuing with the unique features of this board, we have urethane belts, which is... does any other company make urethane belts, or is that something that's unique to you guys as a skate
We've never seen it in electric skateboards. And one of the things about this board is that we kind of designed it to withstand Dylan Bell because he's an insane rider and the things he could do are just incredible. And with the early prototypes, we'd give him one, and because it had so much power and all these other unique things, he would start doing stuff on it that we've never seen anyone do on electric skateboard before.
Yeah.
And it was so exciting to watch, but then it would break after 5 minutes, you know, like it was literally, we were buying the best belts we could find that were rubber, and he would be able to snap them in 5 minutes.
Yeah, so if you guys don't know who Dylan Bell is, he's got an Instagram. I believe it's at He Was a Skater Boy. I'll put it on screen, but he came out here for the races with Radium, and pleasure to meet him. Awesome guy and absolutely incredible skating skills. He was out here doing donuts right over there with some Andra tires and shredding through the rubber on them. It was quite the sight to behold.
Yeah, he's very entertaining and super fun to watch.
Yeah.
On track, it was amazing watching him pass people because we'd never seen him riding on track before against other riders. Like, this is our first race event that we've been to, and you know, he was just passing people almost lying on the ground.
Yeah, he was drifting quarters. I saw it.
Yeah, he's amazing to watch. So yeah, we have a lot of fun with Dylan just watching him, you know, like sometimes I go out to go for a ride to test with him and then end up just standing there watching him for half an hour.
I think I would have the same feeling, to be honest.
Yeah, but we had to develop these belts to withstand him, basically. So we were sick of snapping belts all the time. Like when we started pushing the power up on these motors and started to do a lot of gravel and off-road and power sliding, we really needed to do something about the belts. And everyone was saying to go to gear drives, but the problem with that is that you can't change your wheels. You're kind of stuck with, you know, whatever wheel size you're running, and with whatever gear ratio you've got. You can't put on pneumatic wheels if you want to do that. And there's other things as well. Like if a gear drive breaks down, it's usually going to be pretty fatal. You're not going to be able to fix it while you're out riding. And we really want this board to be bulletproof and the kind of board that will never leave you stranded. And
yeah, that's awesome.
learned to, after we started testing the urethane belts and developed them a bit, the way that they fail is fantastic because they never snap. They are pretty much unbreakable. Dylan hasn't been able to break them, and he's only on his second set of belts as well.
Wow.
The whole time he's owned his board, which is nuts. They have extreme durability because the teeth are so hard because they're made of polyurethane.
Yeah.
And when they fail, they don't shred the teeth off or break usually. They start to wear out and start to lose little chunks.
Yeah,
and they
that's
start
very
to become,
different.
Yeah, they start to become more of like a V shape instead of a normal tooth. And then they start to slip more and more and more over time. And you're like, okay, this is getting annoying. I'm going to change my belts later on when I get home. But
Yeah,
it's not
so-
like it's going to leave you stranded, you know.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. I mean, I've had a couple rides where I've snapped belts. I've also had a ride where I broke a gear off, and yeah, it was pretty bad getting back to my car on one gear.
Yeah.
And I'm like one of the biggest proponents for gear drives for sure. I just love that I never had belt skip, and that was always a problem on all of my belt setups. With a setup like this, you're able to run the belts a lot tighter.
Yeah, you can run them
without
basically.
wearing them down.
You can run them like guitar strings, and because they have steel cords, they just don't stretch.
Yeah.
So they stay that way, and they don't skip.
Yeah, and normal belts do stretch a tiny bit over time. It may
do.
not be noticeable until you have to really, to brake really hard, and then you have belt skip, and,
And if
you
you run
don't
them,
stop.
if you run them super tight, it'll break the fiberglass cords as well.
Yeah,
The steel doesn't seem to care at all.
yeah,
It's just so tough.
I think not. So, we've talked about a lot of different things on this board. You got anything that comes to mind that we haven't touched on yet?
Yeah, so this is chassis number 00 of the Genesis boards, which is a limited run of 10 boards that we did, plus this one.
All right.
And on the front, we've got a custom titanium badge that shows its chassis number. And
Yeah,
then
that's sick.
another cool feature of our boards is that we're really sick of turning boards over at group rides to charge them. It's just an awkward thing. And so the charge port is on the top of the board. So it's under this cover here.
Oh, that's fancy. I saw the power button up here, and I was like, wow, that's
Yeah,
cool.
so charge port and power button are on top, so you actually never have to turn over your board. Everything's
this-
just on top.
It looks like a Waypoo panel mount connector,
Yeah,
is that right?
SA12 Waypoo, so it's a
SA12,
super
nice.
compact little connector. Really nice billet aluminium.
I use the SF12 on a lot of my battery builds, and I believe the only difference is that the SA12 is usually black.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, it looks really clean, and then we
gotta
got
be
the
black.
power button here, and I believe it's red, is that right?
Yes.
Sweet. And inside there, you've got a Maker X ESC, right?
That's correct. It's a Maker X DV6S, and we're pushing
You guys have had a very good experience with them so far?
amazing experience. Like, before Maker X came around, I was almost thinking of designing our own motor controller, and I knew that it was going to take at least 6 to 12 months of R&D to make something like that happen.
Yeah.
And then when Maker X came around, I don't even think about that anymore.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we've been able to use Vesc no problem since they've come around, and it's just so nice to not have to worry about blowing up motor controllers anymore.
Oh, yeah.
It used to be a big thing, but not
Do
anymore.
you mind sharing your motor amp settings?
Yeah, so we're running 150 phase amps per motor, so you have a ridiculous amount of torque, and around 70 battery amps per motor.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So, one thing to know about these amp ratings, for Vesc, the amp ratings are usually per motor. You hear 150 amps, you're like, wow, I've seen X company that says their ESC is rated at 90 amps. Well, that's not the same thing at all. The 90 amp rating that a lot of the other companies use is often a motor amp rating that's split across the two motors. That is not the case here. This is 150 amps straight into the motor, and when you launch, you will definitely feel it. I run my personal race board at 135 amps per motor right now, and that thing takes off like a rocket. I'm sure that
And,
is a similar experience here.
Yeah, and like, the kilowatts is really like one of the biggest things that's going to tell you how much power a board actually has. A lot of boards, they show like the rated motor power, and if we went off that for this board, that would be 16 kilowatts.
Yeah, that's
but-
crazy.
But realistically, we're pushing about 8.5 kilowatts on the 205 kV motors. So that's the real power that's going into the motors.
Yeah, and I think it's important for people to understand that a lot of companies do overrate their power a lot. So when you hear this can do 16 kilowatts, yeah, I mean, maybe it can do 16 kilowatts for about half a second, but 8 kilowatts is a much more realistic number that you're going to see every day. And if you really like mashing that throttle, you're going to feel the difference between this true 8 kilowatts and X company that says they're rated at 10 kilowatts.
Sure.
I trust these guys because I've seen their whole development process on our Esk8 forum, and they have a really great website that shares a lot of their journey and really great blog posts. So I encourage you guys to check them out on their website. I'll put the link in the description, and you guys can read about their history and kind of see all the development progress. It's really super cool from an engineer's background. It's an awesome thing to see. And I didn't ask, but are you an engineer or are you?
No. Straight out of high school, I used to always make stuff. I still do. And
Sweet.
I just learned by trial and error. I've got thousands of hours of experience in CAD, making things, breaking things, and learning how things work. And you see actual engineers doing a lot of silly stuff because they don't have the practical experience.
Yep, definitely.
And sometimes it's practical experience wins over engineering.
No, I totally agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
So I guess for you, as like you said, you're not a degreed engineer, which nowadays degrees don't always mean a whole lot.
There's a lot of information online you can learn if you need to get into science as well.
Absolutely.
There's definitely been things with this board where I've needed to find out more than just trial and error,
Yeah.
And I start reading through research papers. That was a big part of designing the motors, trying to understand how motor performance works. I spent countless hours reading through very in-depth research papers trying to understand, and then I would go and tell the factory to make a change and get them to dyno it, and then we would find out if it was better or not.
Yeah, that's awesome. What was your biggest challenge designing this board from an engineering and assembly standpoint?
Probably designing it for manufacturing, so to make it actually affordable to produce. That is definitely the biggest challenge. It's not that hard to design a prototype that works well. It's significantly harder to design one that you can manufacture at a low cost that still works well.
Yeah.
And we're still kind of going through that process a little bit. There's some things we learned from the Genesis production batch where we're like, okay, we need to make a few changes for production to make it easier, so there's less labor time, it's not as expensive to produce in that regard. We've gone through designs where we've stepped in the wrong direction, so the previous version of suspension was made out of folded and welded sheet metal, and it was trash.
Wasn't strong enough?
It was just misaligned, everything was out of alignment, and just the tolerances of that kind of process was no good. And it rode very harsh as well. It was just a bad design, and it was an attempt to reduce the production cost, but in the end we decided that let's just go for high quality, make everything a super snug, tight fit, so that this board just feels like it's on rails and has no play or anything like that. It's just super solid feeling, and that's the feedback we've gotten from everyone so far, is that it feels so nice and solid. It's what people are saying.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I guess probably the final question to close this out. The battery in here we were talking about, it's on a unique PCB design. You said it's a 12S6P, right?
Yeah, it's a 12S6P Molicel P42A.
Yeah, so that's a pretty standard battery for high quality boards at this point. The P45B is also an option. Higher discharge, much higher price, but
about double the price per cell.
Yeah, the price per cell is much higher. But question I have is, what's your range that you guys typically get on these? This is another thing that companies way overrate. So
yeah, definitely.
Curious.
We'd say about 20 to 30 miles, so 30 to 40 kilometers. And that's just through real world experience.
Yeah.
And it depends what wheels you're on, how heavy you are, the way you ride, the ambient temperatures, so many things affect it, like Dylan is super light and he's able to get 50 plus kilometers out of the charge. So
right, yeah, and the wheels do make a huge difference.
Definitely.
I'm fully aware.
So you can put urethane on this board. It's 8mm axles, and then you can get some pretty crazy range.
That's sweet.
Like almost double, I would say.
With everyone going to high voltage nowadays, what's your opinion on 14S, 18S? Do you think it's just not necessary yet?
Look, I've tried high voltage boards and I don't really understand what the difference is. Like if you've got the same amount of watts going into the motors, then there shouldn't really be any difference. The motors don't care what voltage is going into them. I mean, it's beneficial in terms of, you can get away with smaller connectors, but it does make the battery more of a pain to design because you've got heaps more series groups to deal with.
Yeah.
Look, the higher voltage controllers, I don't fully trust them yet. they're running on a different Vesc architecture.
Totally get that.
It's always come across to me as being more unstable, seeing the weird issues people have with them. And the Maker X DV6S is probably the only controller I trust at the moment to be just.
All right, so my camera ran out of storage space, so I switched to a different card, and we got a cameo by Dylan Bell here.
Hey, how you going?
Really nice to meet you at this competition, and really great job on your performance.
Thank
I know
you.
you didn't quite make finals, but you still did really great, and
I was 1 point off.
that kills me. Only person to make it to finals with, or sorry, to make it into pro with tires and a board setup like this. Really impressive. So good job on you.
Appreciate it.
We were talking, last thing, we're talking about Maker X DV6S, the only controller you trust right now.
Yeah, for sure. That's the reason why we're not super interested in high voltage, because the higher voltage Vesc architecture seems a bit unstable to us. We've just seen a lot of people having some weird kind of issues, and so the Maker X DV6S is the only controller we really trust at the moment. And that's why we run 12S, but honestly, like the power is pretty crazy, pushing 150 amps per motor, so I mean,
Yeah.
I don't really see need for more than that with the current setup we have with no binding. For a street board, it's more than enough for most people.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think most people would get thrown off this board instantly if they don't know what they're doing.
Exactly,
So,
yeah.
I'm going to try to get a demo ride in on this. I know we hit 30 minutes of recording. This is probably one of the longest interviews that will be on my channel in a long
There's
time.
heaps to talk about. I could keep going, man. We haven't even
I know.
talked about the trucks.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of things to talk about, but I think I'm going to cut it off for here. And if you guys have questions about the board, be sure to email or contact you guys. What's your best place to be contacted?
Just through Instagram or through Facebook.
Sweet.
That's our best contact method, or email through our website. Yeah, we're pretty responsive on all of those.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to try to go grab my GoPro and get a little demo in on this.
Looking forward to seeing what you think.
Yep. And we'll have to... We completely missed the RTS system, which is torque vector, which is incredible.
Should we do an extra little bit on that?
Yeah, well, let's do a little bit on that after I do the demo ride, because I need to let my camera cool down. But
Oh, true.
thanks so much for now.
No worries.
All right, so we're back again. This video is going to be really long, probably like 40 minutes now. That's sweet, because this is probably one of the coolest boards I've seen in a long time. So one of the last things that we didn't touch on is the RTS system. And RTS is something that us people on Vesc have wanted forever. There's something called traction control. I say quote unquote traction control because it's basically useless in the Vesc tool. And these guys have went and developed something that is basically traction control. Is that what you're calling it?
No. So RTS stands for Radium Torque Steering. And so it's actually kind of more closer to torque vectoring.
Okay.
And so traction control is where you kind of don't want the wheels to slip. You don't want them to lock up when you're braking, for example, or accelerating. And this does actually do that in a different way completely. And so what we have is in the front truck, you have a steering angle sensor, which is actually very well hidden. You won't even be able to see it. It's pretty stealthily in there, and it measures the steering angle of the front truck. And then based on that, it feeds that system, feeds that information to the RTS system, which we have developed, which is standalone from Vesc, and that interfaces with Vesc. And so what happens is when you turn in one direction, you're basically giving more power to one motor than the other, and it'll even brake on one side and accelerate on the other side while you're turning. And it uses that to steer the rear truck. So it's actually like having power steering.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool.
So is it an IMU in the front or an accelerometer, or?
No, it's a Hall sensor, so we're actually getting the actual steering angle.
So it's a Hall sensor, and then there's a magnet, I'm assuming, somewhere on the hanger.
Correct.
And it will like go past it and report the angle.
Yeah, that's exactly how
Have
it
you
works.
found that you had to apply like significant filtering onto the input?
The signal, it gets great from it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And even if you don't get an amazing signal, it's not really a big deal, because in the center of travel, it's not doing a whole lot.
Yeah.
It starts to really work as you turn more and more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Will's got the board here. You want to show off how it works?
Yep. So it's going to show what happens when you move from one side to the other.
Wow. Yeah, you can tell it's really giving one side full grip. So say, let's make a simulation here. So you're doing a heel side turn. This is a goofy foot board. So you're doing a heel side turn. The deck angle is going to tilt towards the inside wheel.
We're giving very little throttle here, and so it's giving all of the power to one side at this point. But if I start to give it, if we go a bit less lean angle, and if I start to give it a lot of throttle, now it's starting to activate the other side as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow, that must feel really interesting on surfaces that aren't ideal.
Yeah, it gives you a lot more traction because your weight is over the wheel that's getting the most power.
Right.
And so you can if you're on a racetrack, you can exit the corner a lot sooner. You can just jump on the power, and not only will it grip harder, it'll actually help you turn in and get a sharper exit at that corner as well. You won't get that understeer that you would normally otherwise get on the power.
Yeah.
And then under brakes as well, it also helps you dip into a corner while you're braking. So it's kind of like having power steering. And then on the street, it actually, people say, you know, oh, doesn't that create speed wobbles though when you're going fast? But in our experience, it actually does the opposite, because when you're going really fast and you hit a bump, the problem is that the board kind of moves away from you for a second, and the longer it takes for the board to come back underneath your feet, the more you can end up overcorrecting and not feeling attached to the board and feeling a bit unsafe and unsecure. And the torque vectoring basically just speeds up the time it takes for the board to come back under you, and it'll just whip straight under you with the torque vectoring, and you feel just super on top of the board all the time. It's a great feeling. It really makes the board just feel more alive and energetic and underneath you.
Yeah, there's one car that kind of took the car world by storm, the Rimac Nevera. It's a four-wheel drive, multi-million-dollar supercar, and it has incredible torque vectoring that really helps them power through corners, and it's pretty awesome to see something like that in a skateboard that will eventually have a racing version.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. We'll see. All right, well, it's time to do the demo, and I'll let you guys know what I think. So thanks so much for your time, Liam. Awesome to meet you, and thanks to you too, Will.